Hey everybody, Greg here from the Player Engage podcast, and I want to let you know what you're about to listen to. We are continuing our series leading up to MDev, and today we are talking to Josh Garity, the founder of Pyramid Lake Games. We are going to be talking about the challenges of game development. We're going to be talking about community engagement and feedback, collaborating with Midwest Games, the power of feedback, and just being a part of the larger community that is the Midwest. This is continuing our series, like I mentioned, and it is a really fun episode with some cool conversations about the games that they're building at Pyramid Lake Games. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you have any feedback, let us know in the comments, and enjoy. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Player Engage podcast. Greg here. Today we are continuing our MDev series to talk to different studios from the Midwest, and today we are joined by Josh Garity. He is the founder and CEO of Pyramid Lake Games. They are out of Madison, Wisconsin. They're doing some really cool stuff with some new titles that are coming out, which I'm excited to explore and also talk about kind of early access and stuff they're doing. Josh, thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything you'd like to say about yourself?
No, thanks for the opportunity to sit here and chat with you and your listeners, and I guess watchers too, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm Josh, founder of Pyramid Lake Games, based out of Wisconsin. Lived here pretty much my whole life, other than a few months that I spent in Florida. Then I got kicked out by a hurricane. Came back to Wisconsin.
Yeah, and this is unfortunate timing for that because it looks like Tampa Bay is about to get hit by another terrible hurricane today, but you're in Madison now, so you're good at
safe from the hurricanes.
Yeah, right.
But came back to the Midwest. Couldn't leave it for too long. It's just such a wonderful place to grow up as a kid, and now I've got he's a teen now, but raising a kid in the Midwest in Wisconsin, there's just something special about the suburbs, riding bikes around like you see in Stranger Things. Like that's very much like what it's like to grow up around here, and it's nice without all the demons and aliens, I guess.
It's a shame. I imagine like giant manhunt games just in the woods. Everyone's backyard's just woods, and I know a few people from there. They all play disc golf. I feel like the Midwest is the place to be, and I'm out here in New Jersey where it's just expensive.
Well, in New Jersey, you don't have to get out of your car to pump gas, so that's pretty nice,
it's
right?
The life. Everyone gives New Jersey crap for that, but I'm sitting here in luxury getting my gas filled for me.
That's right.
I'm excited to talk today. You made an announcement a few days ago. I mean, the game's been announced for a while, but you put some more information out there. You're making Varsity High School Football, and that's awesome that there's a high school football game coming out because college football just came back, but high school football's got this huge following, and you guys are tackling that. Let's start there. I mean, can we talk about Varsity High School Football? What was the idea behind it? How did you kind of come to say, hey, let's make a high school football game?
Yeah, wow. I think you can see behind me, there's a couple of games that Pyramid Lake worked on as kind of a very minimal consultant role with Doug Flutie's Maximum Football. We partnered with Spear Interactive. They were a partner of Canuck Play, which is the original developer of Maximum Football. We worked with Spear Interactive directly on some marketing, did a lot of the UI, UX design for redesigning the Dynasty experience for college, because that was kind of a new element once we got involved, because originally it was just Canadian football. Then Spear came involved in 2019's release to make it kind of a US American college football experience. And we had a billboard outside of the NFL draft and everything to announce, college football is coming back. And we were the first college football since NCAA 2014. So it was a huge deal. Learned a lot during that experience. Spear Interactive and Pyramid Lake decided to part ways with the original developer. And shortly thereafter, we sold the IP to the physical publisher Maximum Games. I think Modus Games is also involved in that. So they've kind of gone on to make their own thing now, and it looks great. Excited to see where that goes. But Spear Interactive and Pyramid Lake decided to kind of take about a year and a half to really explore what the marketplace was. We knew EA Sports was coming back with College Football 25, so there was kind of a crowded marketplace for that, and we'd already experienced that a little bit. So we were curious what what opportunities there were that were kind of untouched right now. And the high school football, depending on where you are anyway, like Texas is just, it's a whole different lifestyle. I mean, there's TV shows and movies about it. So because of our experience in our, meaning Pyramid Lake Inn, Spirit Interactive, with business, the business side of independent games, we spent a lot of time doing research on kind of the opportunities of what's out there and the high school marketplace of, how many high schools are there, how many football teams are there, how many kids are playing it. So it just became a no-brainer to kind of expand our experience from, Doug Flutie's Maximum Football to build our own thing from the ground up and build our own team, to make a simulation, very realistic style of, high school football. And we're now, I think, formally about 2 years into it, maybe a little bit less, of full-time development. We've been sharing monthly updates. We haven't really formally announced or released a trailer for the game. We're still trying to fly under the radar a little bit. But everybody's kind of found us out, and we just finally released or launched the Steam page, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago. And that's been going really well. So yeah, it's kind of a really hard and fast, quick overview of all the stuff going on there. But it's been a really great experience. Wonderful team that we've built over with Spirit Interactive, and it's really exciting to see what we've been able to do over the last couple of years with a small team.
Yeah, it's a super cool idea. I was watching some of the videos you did release. I saw one with a QB scrambling a bit, which looked super smooth and fluid. Like, it's funny. I was watching some of the Maximum Football clips, and I realized those were years ago. And you can see the evolution of how smooth things have gotten. You also have
Yes.
you were selecting the county from within. I think it was a Tennessee or some state. It's just oh my god, there's gonna be so many
Yes.
options in here. How do you set those expectations? And obviously, you want to keep some of that stuff close to your sleeve right now. But it's super cool. I imagine it's a very ambitious project, but it's yours to build out, right? It's an awesome place to be.
Yeah, the amount of research that we did the first year, and Danny, our first full-time lead developer that we brought out of the team, how he's also explored what each state's kind of structure is for classifications and divisions and regions, and it's absurd, how different each state is, how many teams there are. So right now, and this may change obviously once we get closer to launch, but right now I've got a piece of paper over here. Where is it? We have between 200 and 800 teams per state, and there's 50 states. So yeah, it gets a little ridiculous. Trying to manage the data of that in a realistic way, but then handle the user experience to make it fun and accessible at the same time. And so it's a really fun challenge to kind of represent the different states and experiences there, but also standardize it a little bit to make it a little bit more manageable for us.
Yeah, I didn't even really think about the data side of things, right? That must be a fun and anxiety-driven thing to look at. I love data, and then you guys start saying, how can we make these pieces of data talk to each other? How can someone from Tennessee be talking to someone in Washington, and so on? And where do they eventually meet? And maybe they never meet, which would be normal because it's high school football. But that's awesome.
Yeah, and every player has their own personality type and their own positions they want to play, so you have to juggle that. And then their parents have different things where they reach out and say, my son needs to be starting quarterback,
or you RPG, don't, huh?
Yeah, so we're finding the balance of this is ridiculous, built for streaming. It creates its own storylines, emergent narratives, which are really cool.
Yeah,
just on some of those messages you get from parents and students and things, but then making it also accessible enough for the casual market and fans of other games too in the area. So it's not hardcore RPG, but there's definitely more of a management aspect to it, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned you just launched a Steam page, and what does that really mean? Obviously, people can see the game now, but from your side of the coin, right? You're thinking, all right, I'm building this game. It's been 2 years. I'm going to launch a Steam page. Why now? What goes into that thought process?
That's a great question. So It's funny because even though we kind of have a track record of releasing actual games, anytime you release any kind of update on social media, there's still those people that are like, this game is never coming out. This isn't a real game. Um, all the
Haters.
gamut of things. Yeah, exactly. And, you can't take that personally because everybody has their own experience that they're basing that on. But this was kind of one of those small little steps in showing that it's a legitimate real game. Obviously, it doesn't really mean too much to have a Steam page like that, but it's just kind of another step in that ladder to get to where we're going to launch. And we've been doing private play testing with some of our Patreon group through Steam already, even prior to the Steam page launching. So we've kind of always been set up there, but I think we have enough visual assets now, whether it's menus and some gameplay, like you mentioned, the QB kind of mini camp drills. Now we have enough to actually show people versus just talk about it. So it seems like a great time to showcase some of that on a Steam page.
I love it. That's a great answer. The fact that you have a Patreon to kind of get probably some eyeballs on it, get some funding or some community help. I see you guys also have a Discord. Are you guys very focused on community, or is it kind of, how do you work with your community or interact with them?
Yeah, community is the biggest thing. I can't say enough about how important it is to build a community of not only just supporters, but, critical members that may be fans of other games and not necessarily yours, but they can provide feedback and view it in a different perspective. Because one of the problems that I've found with indie game development, especially like solo developers and things, you're very passionate about what you do. You're making a game because you're a fan of the game too, and that's really cool. But you end up in kind of an echo chamber of, yeah, you should release this game. I would totally buy it. To your 50 followers, that are on Twitter. Or so, you might have thousands, but only like 50 core members that are always engaging you. But you can't make a living off of those 50 people buying your game. So you really need to expand the community into something much larger. And it's very hard to do. That's why people sign with publishers, because it's hard to develop a game, have that creative vision, manage the project, but then also have the time to communicate with the community. So the community aspect is what really makes a game successful, right?
Yeah.
Without that, you're kind of just crossing your fingers and hoping it becomes viral, which is not a good strategy at all. So yeah, we spend, every day we're in Discord, Patreon, we post something maybe, a few times a month, if not more, depending on what it is. We're on Instagram, TikTok. We're always communicating with the community everywhere because they're passionate fans and they know what they want. And the secret to success is just listening to the people that want to play the game and give you their money, right? So why create a barrier between you two? Just have real conversations, be transparent, and take feedback and direction when it's applicable.
I love the one thing. I love everything you said there, but specifically, you can have hundreds and hundreds. You could have thousands of followers, but you probably will only have a small percentage of that. You said it's 50, right? It could be 5%, it could be 1%, right? That are the vocal aspect of your community, and those are probably going to be, everyone's important in your community. Don't get me wrong, but the vocal people are going to be the ones that you want to engage with. Yes, you're going to have haters that are just going to be trolling you, but whatever. But like people that play NCAA football 25, right? People that play Madden, people that want to interact with football, right? Like their feedback's important because they will be players of this game. So it's important to hear what they like, what they don't like, what we can improve on. And obviously you can't address all of what they say, right? But you can take that stuff and bring it back and say, all right, here's what we heard. What can we do to help address that? And I think that's such a great way to interact with your community. I think that's important for anyone that's building a game. Yeah, you don't want to bank on it going viral, but if it happens to go viral, that's hitting the jackpot as long as you got the funding and ability to finish the game.
Yep. I think that ties back to like the Midwestern values of it all. Like, I don't know if it's just a me thing, a Midwest thing or what, but it's so important. Whenever we post a new video on TikTok, for example, or Instagram for our monthly updates, I will respond to every single comment on there for at least the first day or two on that new video. I can't always go back to previous videos because we just get comments every day. But anytime somebody asks a question in Discord, if it's not me, it's one of the team members on the varsity project, and we're always answering stuff all day, throughout every day. And it's so important because we get direct feedback on what people want. And, they're there to help us give them a good game.
Yeah. You mentioned Midwest values. You talked about publishers earlier. How did you actually connect with Midwest Games, right? Because they did publish the first game, which is Floor is What, which looks fantastic, and we'll talk about that as well. But how did you connect with Ben? How did that relationship start, and how do you kind of building a community from there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I stumbled upon some of his LinkedIn posts, maybe his Twitter, last summer. I don't remember exactly how we did that, but then he kind of announced that he's got this new company, Midwest Games, and they're starting to publish games from the Midwest. So I'm like, perfect, I've got a game. So I had a pitch deck that I was creating to send out to other publishers, spoke with a couple of different publishers leading into that. A lot of great publishers out there, but I just didn't feel like, I don't want to say that we weren't a priority because, I mean, who are we? Of course, we're not going to be. But when I reached out to Midwest, and I think I spoke to Chris directly first, with feedback, like there was just this communication like this. It was very casual but professional. It's like you just ran into somebody at the gas station or something and you're having a discussion about something. And that really stood out to me because there's so many options and opportunities in the gaming industry to work with people, reach out to different publishers and stuff like that. But if you don't feel comfortable with them on like a personal level like this, it becomes very, black and white business, and you're not getting the feedback creatively that maybe you want. And I don't think I'm answering that really well, but what stood out to me about Midwest was their values aligned with my own, and that going back to the community building, being able to just shoot them an email or talk to them on Slack or wherever it may be. It's just, they're so accessible and professionally casual. Like, I don't know how to describe that, but like, that's very much what stood out to me. And, I think I pestered them into reviewing the game the first month because I would always follow up. I'm very persistent. I'm like, where are we with this? Did you like it? Anything you'd like to see changed? And I think within the first couple of months from submitting that to, I think, MDev, you'll be at MDev, right?
I will be there.
Nice. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. So I think I had a booth at MDev last year showcasing a very early build of the game. And shortly thereafter, I think we announced we're officially partnering. Well, at least internally we partnered. I don't think we announced it until like May of this year, maybe. It was a bit after that. But yeah, we became partners late last year. It's kind of a roundabout story as I'm thinking through it. But yeah, man, I got really lucky finding a publisher based out of Wisconsin. Ben's, from Wisconsin here, going to school here, everything like that. And it's just, I couldn't have been more fortunate.
I think the story is perfect. I think it kind of comes full circle to what we have been talking about outside of the gas station thing. Because again, I don't leave my car. We don't have conversations at gas stations.
Man, maybe that's a Wisconsin thing. Like everybody goes to Quick Trip for not just gas, but like food. You go there and you buy like breakfast sandwiches and chickens. And
we have Wawa for that, but we're antisocial
there
in our car. But the whole community building and that fact that you're just able to reach Ben by seeing him on social media and reaching out, the accessibility of it, I think is something that's important. You hear about it from community members, and again, you're the community of another bigger publisher here, right? And the fact that they're reaching out to you must be like a oh my god moment. Like they actually got back to me pretty quickly here. Like this is awesome. And then you kind of have these casual conversations, and I think these are the best ways to partner with people you can have these conversations with, and you can bounce ideas around. Were you, I talked to a lot of indie game builders now that are stressing out about publishing, and like, was there nerves going in? Were you comfortable? I don't know if that's a weird question to ask.
That's a good question. I don't know. My personality type or my kind of perspective on it all is, I'll send something out to somebody, and as long as they're open and honest and provide feedback, even if they're not interested, totally cool. I get it. It's not that they don't like me as like an individual or what I'm doing. It just doesn't align as a business need for them at that time, and totally understandable. So yeah, I never really go into anything like being anxious or like, God, I hope they really like it. It's just kind of like, here it is. I get the business side. Here's where I'm at. Here's the research that I did to support the business decisions on this game. If it aligns with you, cool, let's keep chatting. Otherwise, I'll just move on.
Again, we talk with a lot of different people in the studio. Some are engineers, some are developers, some are studio heads. If I were to ask you kind of what is your specialty, your background, or what would you say what is your day to day mostly like?
Wow. All of the above. Yeah, I really jump between doing development on Floor Is What. I do the design work for Floor Is What and Varsity. The team day to day for Varsity right now is fairly automated because we've been into that for a couple of years and the process is established. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, we have meetings for that just as a team. So it's pretty straightforward, and then jumping around social media to respond to stuff. Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of everything. And I love that, like the startup mentality of some of these things. Prior to founding Pyramid Like Games, I founded a marketing agency working in the user experience and design space. And it's very similar to that, where I had a team of, 5 or 6 full-time people. It was kind of that camaraderie of excitement of, let's see what we can build. Let's see which projects we can bring in and, secure. And it's just a different experience than working in a Fortune 500 or even a very established kind of organization that's not larger, but you're kind of building it as you go. And that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, I love how you're a jack of all trades here. You're doing it all, and it's extremely respectable because I can't develop, I can't do that stuff, and having someone that's taking care of both the business side and the technical side, and the community side, right? That's multiple full time gigs all rolled into one. So congrats on that for doing what you're doing there. Uh, the Floor Is What looks awesome. I've been watching it on the Steam page. If anyone is listening and you've played games like Fusion Frenzy, that's the first thing that came to mind for me and we spoke about, but it's also Mario Party. Looks like it's a very accessible way to kind of have you and a group of friends play these mini games. What was the driving reason you made that game? I mean, what was your interest in it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So originally it was about 2020. Pandemic started. My son was doing remote schooling from home, just like, a majority of other people. And what was that, 4 years ago? So he would have been about 9 or 10 at the time. He was getting into Roblox and trying to learn how to develop on that. He wanted to make like a Floor's Lava style game. So we ended up doing kind of a weekend prototype in Unity just to show him kind of how to develop a project and start a project. And it looked terrible, but it was functional because I think we took like 3 or 4 hours to build it out. And from that point on, it was cool. And then we tried to add in like other elements to not just like the tiles falling into the lava, but if you run over a tile, it changes into your player's color. So who has the most tiles at the end of the timer? And about that time, he moved on to other things because he was young. And, he's like, there's enough time on this. I'm going to go do something else. So I let it sit there for maybe a couple of months and was building out a different prototype and came back to it again, I think, because there was social media engagement. I think I've spoken with a lot of publishers, and one really cool thing that stood out to me to validate a business is not just the research into numbers of things, but creating content, little 15-second snippets to share on social media, whether or not it's an organic post or you put in like ad revenue or ad dollars behind it to get it out to more people. It's a really great way, especially for a solo developer or indie studio without funding yet, to validate that something they're working on has a bigger community behind it versus just something that they think is cool. So as I saw that getting more and more popular, again, on a small scale, but it stood out above other prototypes I was working on at the time. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something here. I'm going to dedicate more attention to this. And I worked on it off and on, just prototyping what it could be. And then I think in 2020, maybe late 2022, early 2023, I decided to just work on it full time. So I stopped consulting work. I stopped doing those things and focused entirely full time on Floor's What. And by the time that we prototyped through that for a couple of years and just explored it, the really big differentiator for me was I want this to be accessible for a lot of people. Like my wife, my son, and I will play Mario Party or Mario Kart or whatever. And our skill levels are all kind of the whole range in there, you know? So I want to make a game that parents can play with their kids, or, you know, teens can play with each other and still be competitive in different ways and still be fun. So that was kind of the underlying purpose of the structure of some of the mini games and the simplicity of 1 or 2 buttons per mini game. Because as Mario Party went on, it became, I don't want to say it's complex, but there's more complexity to it than it was in, let's say, Mario Party 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So then building on top of that for the accessibility, I wanted to create customization for players, because everybody loves to customize and build their own stuff, right? But that's a big thing that's lacking in games like Fusion Frenzy or Mario Party or Crash Bash. You have to select from pre-existing characters. In games like Fortnite, you can buy skins, you can do all these different things. So I wanted to combine this family-friendly atmosphere into customization. So my son loves, you know, Funko Pops and Legos and things like that growing up. So I wanted to combine all of that, like the Lego games, like Lego Marvel and Lego Batman. Like those are such fun games. So I wanted to kind of take from that, inspiration from that, and make it so you can make your own characters, select different heads, different faces, bodies. And because we have an announcer in the game, you can actually select your name from like 3 different options. So there's, I think, like 200 different names. So you can kind of combine them in any order. And the announcer will actually say your character's name in the game, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. I mean, I have a 6-year-old and he's going to eat this up. I mean, the fact that you can customize it, like he is into the Marvel games, like the Lego games, like you said, but I agree with you. People just want to create stuff. People want to have characters that are their own that they can create. And I love the family-friendly, easy access of it, right? You can play it with your kids, and then later at night when everyone's asleep, you can play it with your friends, and you can make a game out of it like that. Like anyone can do it, and I love it. And I think it's such a great idea. And it came from the community, and eventually your son's going to ask for royalties from it. So good luck with that.
Yeah, he's like, what's my name? What do I get in the credits? Like, what are you listing me as?
Right?
I'm like, oh man, I've created a monster.
You have created a monster, and he's what, 14? So good luck with that.
Yep. Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about MDev, but before I do that, I'd like to do the little fireball round, which you may have heard, but I'm going to throw some quick questions at you. Good to go? Yep, he's drinking his coffee.
Okay, my coffee. Good to go.
What did you have for breakfast?
I made an egg sandwich, like an egg McMuffin, but from home, and this horrible tasting coffee.
There you go. Hey, it's coffee. That's all that matters at the end of the day. It's caffeine.
Yep, need that caffeine.
This would be my first time to the Midwest. Which type of cheese should I eat?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, cheese curd. I don't know if that's a type of cheese specifically, but a cheese curd for sure.
The best of cheese.
I don't know if Culver's. So, are you aware of, like, do you have Culver's by you? I'm not sure if you do.
Nope. I know it, but I haven't near me.
They just kind of re-released this year the Curder Burger. There's a mouthful to say. It's a giant flat cheese curd on a hamburger.
Wow.
So I don't know if they'll still have that in like early November, but that's an option for you.
I hope they do, because that sounds amazing. If you were going to go to a bar, what drink are you ordering?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't drink very often. Man, I don't know. Probably just like a spotted cow or something like that.
There you go. That works. What is your dream vacation?
Well, funny enough, I'm actually going on that vacation next week.
Where you going?
So every October, my friend and I go down to Universal Studios in Florida
Sweet.
for their Halloween event where they close things down and kick all the kids out. And at about 6 o'clock, they bring in about 10,000 more people to then go through haunted houses. They're just like walking through, movie sets with actors and stuff. It's incredible.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great time. And the last question is, what is the last game you played?
Wow. The last game I played was actually yesterday. College football 25 I
Nice.
played.
Who's your team?
My coach, after I think 14 years of playing in the game, I'm finally an offensive coordinator of Wisconsin.
Nice. There you go. You made it.
Yep.
All
I
right.
was hoping for head coach, but maybe next year.
Hey, keep grinding. All right. That's all I got for you for the hot seat here. Was last year your first MDev?
It was my first MDev, and it was my first overall video game conference of any kind, actually.
Can you kind of tell me how it was? What stood out?
Yeah, my experience was probably a little bit different because I was in kind of like the creators row where we had a table and a TV. I guess it's over there so you can't see it, but I had this banner. Get 4 controllers out on the table, and that was cool being amongst kind of the other indie developers and seeing what everybody else is working on from the area. So then every half hour or so, I would go into one of the talks, like the keynote speakers and, the Q&A sessions and things. And it's really cool to gain some knowledge from people that have been in the industry for so long, whether it's indie developers or AAA studio heads or whomever it may be. So that was a really cool experience, and I'm looking forward to coming back again November 8th.
What are you looking to accomplish this year at MDev?
That's a good question for Midwest Games, I think. I think we'll have the game at their booth this year versus having my own. But then now that the game's grown a little bit and we have the support of Midwest Games, just talking and getting more feedback from people in person is always wonderful. Sitting in on some of the panels would be wonderful. So nothing specific to gain other than just having a good time, meeting a lot of new people and including yourself in person and just taking in the industry.
Yeah, I think I'm excited about that too. I think, until I really started talking to Ben, I didn't realize the kind of growth that the Midwest is having in gaming, and it makes a lot of sense, which I think is awesome. And I think I've seen this sense of community amongst the studios I've spoken to so far. I was speaking to Filament Games the other day, and she was telling me how there's tons going on there, and they used to just not talk with each other, and now kind of not because of Ben, but with Ben's help, right? He kind of helped unite everyone there, kind of create one stronger force there. And I think that's what I'm excited to learn more about and actually witness it, right? I heard it's at a much bigger arena this year. There's going to be a lot of things going on. So I think you guys have some great stuff going on in the Midwest, and I'm excited to kind of see it all in person, and hopefully eat a burger, because that burger sounds delicious. Really kind of see all the different studios and see what they need. I mean, you got AAAs like Respawn and Raven out there, right? You got single A's, double A's. So I think you guys have such a unique mix of everything in I'm not going to say a small area, but a smallish area where you can all really start to form that community.
Yeah, it's incredible. The AAA studios are, headquartered here in the Madison and Milwaukee area. And I don't think, to your point, that a lot of people realize that. And I've lived here for 40 plus years, and I didn't really acknowledge that either until MDev last year. I think it was Ben's talk to kick off the event where he showed a map and was talking through all the studios and some of the games that they'd worked on. And I was like, man, that's incredible. And I'm from here. How do I not know that?
How did you actually get into the gaming side of things, right? You had a data platform you were working on, kind of looking at those insights. How did that transition to, hey, let's make games?
So I've always been a big fan of games. I don't know how old I was, maybe like 7 or 8. I was over at my stepdad's friend's house, and his kids were playing. The living room was dark. Let me kind of set the stage here a little bit as I'm remembering it. So we were about to leave. We're walking out. We passed the living room, and his friend's kids were kind of huddled around the TV in the corner, and it was just kind of illuminating the room, right? I'm like, oh, what's that? So I walk over, and they're playing Super Mario Brothers. And I'd never seen a video game before. I didn't know they existed. And seeing that, I just kind of sat down and was just in awe of all that there was. You're sitting there controlling this guy on the screen and running around. And from that moment, I was really hooked into getting a Nintendo, playing Nintendo games. And then, I've been hooked ever since then, 30 plus years later. And it's just, it's crazy to see how far the industry has come, how accessible it is for someone like me to just download, whether it's Godot, whether it's Unity, whether it's Unreal, Game Maker. There's so many different ones out there that it's accessible to download that and follow along with all these tutorials on YouTube and figure out how to do it. It's incredible that I remember in high school buying a book to learn how to program, but you had to program your own engine and C# and do all this stuff. And it's much harder. The barrier of entry was much more ridiculous. I actually, in high school, I tried to take a Japanese language course over the summer because I'm like, if I work in the video game industry, like Nintendo's headquartered over in Japan, like there's so many that are over there, I should probably know how to speak the language a little bit. I was the only person to sign up for that class, so they did not have it.
That's a funny way to look at it. In this whole story, I thought you were going to go into Poltergeist. You walk by this room and the TV is just shining again. But I love that you saw a video game. I think that's how a lot of us kind of we see a video game for the first time and we're thinking that's what I want to do. And I love how you pursued it and you made it. You're here. You're making games. If you could go back to high school, when you're taking a look at language courses or other coding courses, right? And you can do anything differently, whether it be learning a different skill, doing something different. Is there anything or any choice you would make that would be different?
Honestly, no, because all the decisions and things that I did at that point led me to this point. So I feel like it did, served me well. I spent a lot of time when I wasn't hanging out with friends modding games like Doom, like the original Doom back in the 90s. There are probably some other ones too, but Doom was a big one because it made it so accessible for everybody with level editors, and the modding community was huge. So I got my start really figuring out how to do things very poorly back then because of that game. And that just kind of spearheaded a lot of learning how to develop games, learning the creative focus that it takes to take an idea and implement it, because the ideas are the easiest part. Everybody has just phenomenal ideas, but actually seeing it through in a way that scales for a business to support employees and things like that it's a totally different skill set to have. So anybody getting into this industry, if you don't have interest in the business side and like the data side, definitely find a partner that does to support you building the game so you can approach it from that side, because without it, it's nearly impossible to be successful, I think.
There's so many things there. I just kind of everything clicks and I love it, right? Like, you got your start making mods for different games, right? And look at your son now, right? He's trying to do stuff with Roblox. So there's such a great connection there. And you're not the first person. I heard similar stories. I've also talked to someone, Patrick Jesman. He'll also be at MDev, right? He and his son building a game together. I love the ability to be able to teach kids, whether it be with real code or just modding games. That's how I always tell people to get started. If you want to do it, just do it. Mods now are so much simpler today than they were when you were doing stuff for Doom, right? Because there's actual platforms to help you do that. You mentioned about find what you like to do and find others that can do the other side of things, right? Maybe you like making games, but not the business side of it. Maybe you like the business side of games, but not making them, right? Find a partner that can help you and do this stuff. I think there's so many people who are out there that are great at doing these things and looking for partners. I think it just makes so much sense. So I love kind of the values and how you're doing this. I think it's fantastic. And I think the more people I hear talking about this from the Midwest, that's really kind of what it's hitting me with, is that like these values on teaching others, helping others, making grow something from your own. I think it's fantastic. So I give you nothing but credit again for doing all that.
Thank you.
I think that's all I have for you today, Josh. Is there anything I missed that you want to talk about?
Oh man, no, nothing comes to mind. I'm just looking forward to meeting some new folks at MDev this year, and excited to hear if you can get some cheese curds to try those out. I know Ben's a big fan, so he'd be very upset if you didn't try any.
I'm gonna do. I will. First of all, I've had cheese curds before, but I imagine they're
Oh,
I
okay.
imagine they're better out there than they are by me. Uh, well, let's talk about Pyramid Lake Games before we go. Pyramid Lake Games, you can find them at pyramidlakegames.com. They have a Discord. Check out their Discord. They have, what else you guys got?
Yeah, so anything you can find at pyramidlakegames.com should link you out to our games like Floor is What, the Steam page, the website, and then from the Steam page, you can actually find all of Midwest Games' kind of games that they're releasing as well, which is really nice. And we've got also Varsity Football that you can find from our website. Floor is What, I believe we're trying to get into some kind of a winter playtest for everybody, so definitely go wishlist the game so you can find out when that launches publicly. And then Varsity, go wishlist them because why not?
Well, we love college, or we love high school football. So yeah,
That's
we will
right.
have links to all the stuff Josh mentioned, to their website, to their Discord, to the Steam pages. Josh, this is a lot of fun, this interview. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I am so excited to meet you at MDev and get a chance to meet everyone from the Midwest out there. Again, thank you so much for coming out today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity and excited to see everybody. Thanks.